Hello, this is Scott from Scott in the System, and today our guest is Andrea Swiger, Program Director of the Conductive Learning Center of North America. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
How did you get involved with the CLC?
It's a great question, Scott. So, to answer that question, I have to kind of go back in CLC's history. So the Conductive Learning Center, kind of its roots go back to 1998, when a family here from West Michigan, the Soar family, was looking for resources for their child with cerebral palsy. They actually went to visit a couple of different centers to access conductive education, one in Canada and one where conductive education started in Budapest, Hungary. And while they were there, they just really were inspired by the power of conductive education to both empower their child and empower them to achieve their maximum level of independence and really develop a sense of how they could have a very fulfilled life. And so they said, if we want access to this, we have to bring it back to West Michigan. So they reached out to several organizations here, several colleges here in West Michigan to try to start a conductive education program here. And Aquinas College here in Grand Rapids was the college that really felt it was part of their mission to expand services for children in West Michigan who would be motor impaired, but also they wanted a teacher training component to teach teachers here in the United States how to become conductor teachers to offer conductive education services long-term here within West Michigan and within the United States. So the Soar family really had that idea right from the beginning and knew that that was important for conductive education's future. So I happened to be in the first cohort of students that went to Aquinas College in that program. So it's called the POHI, so physically or otherwise health impaired, and / conductive education program. So I was in that teacher training program starting in 2001 and graduated in 2005. And after that, I started right away here at the Conductive Learning Center working as a conductor teacher in the classroom, and worked here for many, many years until just in 2020, I took over as program director after our longtime director, Dr. Andrea left that position, and she's now our liaison wonderfully from the International Pedo Institute in Budapest. So it's a little bit about my history, but honestly, when I was in college, I was really when I was looking at colleges, I was looking at possibly going into occupational therapy, possibly going into physical therapy, possibly going into special education. And I'd never heard of conductive education, like probably many people who are listening to your station right now, is I didn't know what it was. But when I heard about it, I thought, this sounds like a really, really unique thing that combined a lot of elements of those things together in one, and also has lots of music involved with it too, which is another love of mine. So it just became a natural fit for me right from the beginning. And that's really how I got involved here at CLC.
That's interesting. How does music incorporate into it? I would never guess that.
Yeah, I know, it surprised me too on my very first visits to the Conductive Learning Center back in 2000. So good 22 years ago now. I came into the classroom into what we call our early childhood program, which is for ages 3 to 6. And I saw kids moving their bodies, walking while conductor teachers were singing and giving them a rhythm to follow and move their bodies to. So music is used in a lot of different ways. One, it's very playful and motivating to our younger students. But two, it activates the brain in different ways to really engage the child on multiple levels, and it provides a rhythmic way for them to coordinate their movement. So we sing a lot here at CLC, especially in our younger ages. I mean, we sing all day long with them, and even with our older students too, even our young adults, we will sometimes sing in our Hungarian songs and folk songs that really provide that rhythm and to guide their motions.
Being it started in Europe, how was it different compared to here in the United States?
It's a great question, Scott. So we did start the program back in 1998, and the program here started as a pilot program, and Hungarian conductor teachers came over here as consultants from the Pedo Institute, which is now called Semmelweis University, András Pedo faculty in Budapest, Hungary. And they came here to bring conductive education to the United States to see how people reacted to it in West Michigan and how they could show that it was a possible service that families would like. And honestly, they came over with a very original model to what they're doing there. And CLC has a really wonderful collaboration between Semmelweis University, András Pedo faculty, Aquinas College, and our center. And we really provide conductive education that is very, 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 very similar to conductive education as it is in Budapest. And maybe we want to talk a minute about what conductive education is. And it's really education-based rehabilitation in a group setting. So kids come into groups with their like-age peers, and all of the children have non-progressive motor disorders here in our programming, mostly cerebral palsy, some spina bifida, some outlying conditions, but they're all non-progressive motor disorders. And they work together in a group on everything from, in those early ages, toileting to self-feeding, to rolling and crawling, standing and walking, developing their social and play skills, to colors and numbers, and later on science and social studies. So they're really working on every aspect of their education and their development. And it's really about helping children to develop a goal-oriented mindset, and then learning to work towards those goals with support. So just like any type of education, you want to see where a child is and see where you want them to be, and bridge and teach them to get there. And that's what we do as conductor teachers. We really help the whole group together to get there. And whether that is working on oral motor tasks, working on self-care tasks, working on ambulation, standing and walking, they do that all within the conductive education setting. So our youngest students, 1 to 3, they'll attend with a parent in our parent and child program, 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. Our early childhood program runs 5 hours a day, 5 days a week. And then our older students, once they get to school age, for students who have been here in the past, they'll go to regular typical schools. They'll come to us for follow-up services, or intensively for 1 month periods, 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. And then intermittently go between their home schools and us for kind of boosters with conductive education. So it's really based off of the ideas of neuroplasticity, and that movement can be learned and coordinated. So that's a little bit about what conductive education is. And honestly, I had the wonderful opportunity to go to Budapest a couple of times and see where conductive education started. And I was honestly so surprised when I walked in the classroom and felt so at home, because when I walked in those classrooms, it felt much like the classrooms here, just in a different language. So it's very, very similar to what is happening right where conductive education started in Budapest.
So I guess I would say the biggest difference is over here, until that started, our training programs were not as structured. It was more sporadic.
You mean as opposed to traditional models of therapy?
Yeah.
It's really different. Every child has different access to different things, but typically they would see a PT and an OT and a speech language pathologist and a teacher and maybe a social worker within the school system if they were in the school system, or maybe they would get some home services for early on. All those are wonderful, wonderful services. And the teams are great and how they work together, but this is really more of an integrated group approach. So when you go to, typically students go to PT, they're going to PT one-on-one, and then they're going to OT one-on-one, and they're going to speech therapy one-on-one, where here there's the group dynamic that really brings students together, really engages them to be active learners and to engage with their peers. They see somebody who's maybe doing something more than they're doing, and maybe somebody who needs help. And they really find their way within this peer-driven system that's highly supportive of their needs. So they're learning tasks that then can immediately be applied right within the classroom. So maybe they're working on learning to bend and stretch their arms during one program as a task. And then right away they go to snack and they're learning to scoop and bring food to their mouth. Scoop and bring food to their mouth. So that same bend and stretch that they just did in a task situation is immediately applied at the next moment at snack time, and then again at lunch. So there's this overlap of learn the task, apply the task that spirals throughout the whole day, because they're here for 5 hours or 6 hours a day. That really happens much more fluidly as opposed to in-person service for 1 hour and then pulled out. So it's just a different model.
Okay, I think I understand the difference being for us old dinosaurs such as myself. I would be pulled out of a regular classroom and go to the POHI room for therapy one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the one-on-one didn't allow the kids or students to connect the dots, so to speak. But when it's more of a social environment, they're more prone to accelerate more, I guess.
Sure. You certainly can speak for your own experience better than I can. But there's definitely a difference when you're looking at 5 hours a day, 5 days a week, or 6 hours a day. You're looking at 20 hours a week or 25 hours a week of service, 25 or 20, 25 or more hours really a week of service. And that's a big difference from 1 or 2 hours a week of service. That piece is just uncomparable. Yeah. And so that's that really early intervention is really key there, and making sure that one of our big goals is to prepare students for a typical school as much as possible, and to go to kindergarten with as few supports as possible and as much independence as possible. So we have a really big goal to reach those families early on, and then continue providing support as needed throughout the school years. But we know that early intervention piece is really important for them.
So these students tend to go to a normal school after so much of the program, or?
Yeah, so at first grade, we are no longer anyone's main school full-time. So we offer that follow-up programming, or we offer intensive. So some of our students are here from West Michigan. Somewhere between 40 and 50% of our students actually come from out of state. That's fluctuated a little bit since the pandemic started, but we have typically been around 50% of our students coming here from out of state. And so the way we run our programming is to offer it in intensive sessions where students come together either from their local schools or from out of state. They'll leave their typical classroom environments for that 4-week chunk of time, and they'll come intensively 5 days a week with us, 6 hours a day during those timeframes. And then we really try to do our best to communicate with families and schools to support them going back into their communities and in their community and their school system and their family life, and applying what they've learned here during that 4 weeks time right back and integrate it into their everyday life.
As our friend Johnny Agar explained it in his book, I had this envision of being like a boot camp almost for the disabled.
Good old Johnny. He always puts a sports twist on things, and he's a hard worker. That's for sure. So yeah, I mean, it's work, right? I mean, if anybody works out their bodies for 5 or 6 hours a day, you're certainly going to get strength. You're going to gain flexibility. You're going to gain coordination and control. But that's why that group environment is so important, because it really pushes the students to support each other, to encourage each other, and to keep going. You know, when you're tired and when you need that extra support, your teachers and your friends are there to encourage you and support you. And maybe sometimes, you know, at the end of the week or the end of the day, somebody needs more physical help to follow through and do the same task than they did at the beginning of the day or the beginning of the week if they're more tired. But we're here to provide that support so that they can continue learning.
Could you give us an overview for students and caregivers?
Sure, I think we've touched on some of that a little bit, but conductive education, because it really is a really holistic approach. One of the things, there was a study that was done with Michigan State University on conductive education, and one of the things that was shared as a feedback from parents during that study was they felt empowered as parents. They felt that they had higher expectations for their child after 4 weeks of conductive education, and they felt more effective at parenting. And I think, you know, parents are always trying their best, but as you have opportunities to learn and learn more about your child and how to support your child, that's just a really empowering thing. And so here, that's one of the things that we try to work really hard on with families is when a family comes in for the first time, we have an assessment with their child. We talk about their history and background, and right away look for opportunities for how the child can learn and develop. But then as they come into the conductive education programming, we meet with the families one-on-one to discuss challenges they have, goals they have for their child, and then how we are going to support them and what's our plan for supporting them, as well as goals that we have for the child based off of what we see right away. And then at the end of 4 weeks, or at the end of a participation of conductive education, that can be longer than 4 weeks as well, we sit down again with families and talk about what has the child learned, what have they developed, how can they take what they've learned and developed and implement it into their home life and in their community life, school life. And really, there's that integration piece is so important for families, because if they can do something in isolation here at CLC, that's great, but it truly becomes useful when it can be integrated into everyday life. And that's really what conductive education is. It's a mindset, it's a lifestyle of goal setting and working towards achieving those goals and continuously developing that practice over time. And then the support comes from the conductor teachers who are highly trained in understanding movement and cerebral palsy. So, you know, while our reach reaches beyond cerebral palsy, I say kind of we're cerebral palsy specialists, if we can put a tab on it, you know, just simple. That's the way I can explain it the best to people.
Just out of curiosity, like in the medical world, doctors don't typically like chiropractors. So in a sense, do physical therapists or occupational therapists feel intimidated by such a program?
I sure hope not, Scott. I don't know. I certainly can't speak for the physical therapists and occupational therapists out there. We try to really just have open communication with all the students our families work with. I have an occupational therapist, I'm sorry, it's a physical therapist that works with many of our students through the school districts, and she has regularly come to the CLC to talk about, you know, what they're doing in school and how can we support the continued growth and the goals that they're working on at school when they're here, and brings challenges to the table that they're having at school, and ask for ideas too for how to support in the school environment. So, you know, we certainly have some wonderful relationships with some PTs and OTs and speech pathologists in the area. I definitely can't speak for everybody, but I always share with families that we are open for collaboration from our side of things. And I really think that that's that some local therapists really can see that openness and really utilize that. And that's really a wonderful thing.
Well, I hope that would be the case that most of the time, you know, so somebody doesn't feel intimidated or what have you.
Right.
The only person that's really going to suffer is the student, of course.
Correct. And that's what I keep in mind, is that, you know, we're really there to support the families and the students in every setting, and it just helps them if we work together.
Exactly. You know, put your ego or pride aside and do what's best for the given student.
Right.
Yeah. And what ways can we become involved as outside community?
Yeah, so there are a few ways. One, our school is supported both by tuition from families as well as philanthropic support. So we have everything from a small steps giving program where people can give a weekly or a monthly small donation to organizations and individuals who give larger gifts, and you know, grant opportunities from foundations as well. So all of that goes to directly support the students and our programming here at the Conductive Learning Center. So if anyone were to be interested there, you can find more information on our website at www.conductivelearningcenter.org and get in under our Get Involved tab. So that's certainly an opportunity. We always have an annual evening of celebration. We were not able to host that the last couple of years just because we're really aware of health in our community, and just with the timing that we were planning it, even last year, it just didn't feel like the right thing to do. So unfortunately, we've missed that opportunity, but we're hopeful that this October that we might be able to have an in-person event again. And it's a great opportunity to learn about CLC and the work we do, as well as an opportunity to give to the operation of the center for students. And then another opportunity is just to be an advocate. So doing things like this, helping people to learn about conductive education, hear about what we do. Well, we've been in West Michigan for 20 years. There's still probably people out there who could benefit from our services who have never heard about us. So advocating and sharing the message about what conductive education can do, the transformational power that it can provide for young children and up through young adults is a great way to just share what we do. So letting people know that it's a program, it's in West Michigan, that they can learn more about it through our website or by calling us here at the school. That's a really great way to help families and to directly help conductive education without any monetary support at all. Additionally, another way to get involved is if you know anybody who might be interested in becoming a conductor teacher. So we're all special education trained teachers. So we're all here POHI certified teachers and elementary teachers, but we have the specialty in conductive education with an internationally recognized degree in conductive education from Semmelweis University Andres Petto faculty. So the only program in the United States that offers this conductive education certification is at Aquinas College. So if you know anybody who's interested in physical therapy or occupational therapy or education or maybe music therapy, maybe tell them about Aquinas and the program and let them know that it's a career opportunity that is very, very rewarding, that can really change a lot of lives, both individual lives, family lives, and really it can change the community as well. And then the last thing that I can think of is that we've been partners for many years with the Riverbank Run in Michigan, downtown Grand Rapids, and we've been an official charity partner over the past few years, and that is a major fundraiser for our scholarship drive. And this year we're not an official charity partner, but we're still running as a team as part of that Riverbank Run coming up in May. So if you have anybody who runs, walks, or gets involved with that in any way and would like to join up with Team CLC, we actually have information on that on our website as well. And we would love them to get involved with CLC and help to raise some funds for our scholarship fund that directly impacts students and provides tuition support for students who have a need. So lots of ways to get involved with us.
Well, yes, there is. I guess my viewers could decide which method might be best for them, I guess.
Yeah, and you can always, if anybody specifically wants to speak more about conductive education, I really welcome to call me here at the school. Our number here is 616-575-0575, and I'm happy to chat with anybody about conductive education and how they can get involved as well.
That is so wonderful. I really appreciate you coming today and explaining how it works to us.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.